Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now, Season 4. I'm your host, Keith Murphy Deaconcini. Today I'm talking to Renee Breazeale, CEO and founder of Victory Over Time. Renee, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Keith. I'm honored and proud to be here.
Thank you. How did you discover my podcast?
I was doing research on podcasts that concentrated on disability empowerment and awareness, and your name was at the top of the list.
Money talks. What can I say? Uh, no, I'm honored that I was anywhere on that list, not to mention the top of that list. Really? That's surprising. But so you wrote a very wonderful book called Soaring Through Adversity. I meant to read it again uh, before we did this episode. But as I just told you, I'm like an old factory cranking out interviews. I love my walk. Tell me more about what led you to yours.
Well, I had a company that I founded and I served as its CEO for 30 years. And then I sold it. And right after that, COVID hit. And I decided that I needed to tell my story because I had so many different adversities in my life, both in business and personally. And so the book contains, it originally was going to be about business, but I realized that I needed to put the adversities that I faced personally in there as well, because I hope that when people read it, they will learn something from it, maybe avoid it, or if they're in the middle of it, maybe have a more positive attitude when they see somebody else got through it.
And what led you to title your organization what you titled it? Because the name is very personal. It has to convey meaning. You're kind of stuck with it in most cases, and so you can't just slap a name on an organization and just say, oh, I came up with that on a hike or in the shower. Or I don't think you can, unless you shouldn't be able to. What led you to your name as a organization? And how has the name's meaning evolved over time?
I think for me, it meant that you're going to go through stuff, but if you are faithful with what you're doing and think positively, for me, prayer played a big role in it. And so it was faith first, not last, will lead to victory and time. And that's where I came up with it, and it stuck with me. And so that's what I went with.
Did you say faith or fate?
Faith, faith first, not last.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Your faith is very important to you. That's something we share in common. Uh, would you mind talking about that journey and how it has evolved and shaped you over time to the successful business woman you are today?
I think in the early years, my faith played a role second, not first. I think that I was more determined that I could do it on my own, whatever it was. And I learned over time as things became more difficult, the mountains became higher, the valleys became lower, that my faith needed to come first. And once it did, it just really enlightened me to understand that I was not doing this alone, that I had help of a greater power than I could imagine.
And so, looking back on this book, which is really your story and the perseverance, not through faith, but aided by faith. Uh, what what are the main takeaways uh, that you hope people will take away from the book?
The lessons learned. At each chapter, there's like three lessons that I learned from whatever it was that I was going through. I went from being homeless at one point in my life to breaking my back, and with the opportunity that I could have been paralyzed, but it didn't work out that way. Thank God I was able to continue with my life as normal. But then there was victories and adversities during work. That in '08, I went from 49 employees down to 6, and it was tough. It was really tough. But it was a huge adversity that my faith played a role. You know, it really helped me get through it. Because also during that time, I found out that I had a huge brain tumor sitting on the top of my head. And I didn't know if I was going to live or die. From the description that the doctors were giving me, it was a time in my life where I had to concentrate on living instead of work. And I would consider myself a workaholic. And it's apparent in the book, and I talk about it in the book. So part of what I want people to see is if I can do it, they can do it too.
And but the organization is not just a organization. You do other things. You have a podcast yourself. Uh,
Yeah.
what is it like running a organization that operates in several different mediums?
For me, it's about getting the word out. Being disabled was, for a time, I had to learn to walk again. And I was left with my voice, so I'm able to talk and communicate like I am with you today. And so I feel like I'm obligated to do that and to tell the story that I learned from being in a wheelchair and what people face and just all the things that went along with that. So from that perspective, from the executive coaching through Victory in Time, and the book is sold through Victory in Time. But it became a bigger picture for me, to where my husband and I started a foundation called the Victory Advantage. And that is to assist people with disabilities to live independently. And that is really close to my heart. And one day a friend of mine said, "You should start a podcast." And I said, "You're crazy." What are you thinking? But, thought about it. And I thought, similar to what you do, Keith, it's how better to get the awareness out and the
Yeah,
empowerment that we can still have, whether we're disabled or we're abled, whatever, we can overcome it. And it just needs the attention, the proper attention, so that people that are disabled do not feel that way and that they have a voice, because the people that I interview have some sort of disability where it could be an invisible, like I call it, invisible wheelchair, but they've got, a severe disability, maybe a
yeah,
mental issue. We all walk
yeah,
around with things like that. I put it in the book. I talked
yeah.
about the depression that I've faced from time to time. I made the book real so that people would see that, yes, I might have owned a large company, but I was much more than that. And my life went
Yeah.
through, as a person, I went through a lot more than that. So yeah, it's the foundation is really, it's going well. We've had a couple of board meetings. We've granted some money. We've been able to help a man get into an electric wheelchair, gave him some freedom that I think it gave me more freedom in the heart than you can imagine. But it was just a wonderful day. It was a wonderful day. We've worked with the Autism Society, but I can tell you that the people that I interview is such a blessing to be in the same room with them. They inspire me tremendously, and that's what I'm hoping the podcast does.
And so faith and family is incredibly important. If I may ask, and you go over it in the book, how did you meet your husband?
In a bar. The more typical way, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
I
Well, our parents probably met at country dancing in the checkout line in supermarkets on the subway bar. Yeah, yeah, the next evolution of courting. Uh,
that I love that word, courting. You don't hear that very much,
yeah,
Keith.
no, I was at a wedding of a cousin, and often home relationship, and they have one of the most successful annoying marriages that you see, because they've been married for almost 10 years and they look like they're still newlyweds. It's like, how? But the pastor who married them said they met the old fashioned way in a bar. And it's like, yeah, yeah. And in 50 years, the old fashioned way will be something else entirely.
Good
Uh,
point. Good point. Yeah, and it will
yeah,
be very normal at that point. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so, again, I think I get the logo, but just like the name of an organization, how did you come? What what creativity went into the logo design and matching it up with the organization name and its mission?
Well, I've always loved eagles, and I don't know where that love came from. Just they're just so majestic and powerful. And so as I've worked through the years, that was the logo for the company that I had, the eagle, and it just kind of transpired and has stuck with me. I have learned different traits of an eagle and how they coincide with the traits in leadership. And the more I've learned about eagles, the more I feel like that entrepreneurs and leaders could learn a lot from how the eagle performs and lives. And, I mean, everybody knows that an eagle mates for life. They just are such partnership building entity.
Imagine that, mating for life. Imagine that.
Can't, can't. I'll be honest and transparent because it's in the book. This is my third marriage. It's kind of like I
Well,
said, three strikes, I'm out, or third time's a charm. And he and I have been married for 19 years now.
well, I mean, that's something, and that comment was really me, not poking fun, but I didn't know that, and about eagles, and that's something very, like, if you didn't know, I don't know why you would know that.
Yeah,
And when you think about it's very sweet from an animalistic perspective.
it is. It is. I actually do some speaking, and one of my topics is living the eagle way. And I have spun that over into the podcast because the people that I interview are just so majestic in their own way, and their tenacity is just through the roof. And and if you look at an eagle, they get something in their talons, and they're not letting it go. It's just that's just who they are. And so I've got different eagle traits on my website that ties into the blogs that I do, that then ties into the podcast. So I'm all in with an eagle.
Yeah, I mean, you also do a blog, you do a podcast, you do speaking engagements, you do mentoring. Uh, I think that's all. I mean, what else could you do? Uh, but it's like that's that's incredible to be that active and to keep up the talents or the pillars of the organization in many different ways. Because I mean, I thought about doing a blog, but then the podcast became too much work, and then the podcast became a video cast, which to me it's much more engaging than just a podcast. Not that there's anything wrong with a podcast, but being able to see each other bouncing off the mannerisms and vocal tones of the other uh, person or people, it's quite something. The logo I chose, I wrestled with quite a lot because it's the most generic stock image of what people think of when they think of disability. And since I'm not yet in a wheelchair, I I didn't I wrestled with whether I could use that or not faithfully, without uh, uh, faithfully without pandering the logo. But then I realized that the logo wasn't for me, and it's not really for people with disabilities. It's more for people who aren't disabled and who are trying
Yes.
or stumbling on to the podcasts or the video cats. When you say the word disability, what is the first thing, the first image that comes to your mind? But I wrestled with that through prayer and workshops until I could finally use it. And then I was like, well, you have to fall in love with it because it's gonna be
Out
the
there.
calling
Yes.
card.
Yes.
And if you can't sell that, if you won't sell it, then no one ever is going to take anything you say or do seriously with that logo. And I have it on both of my business cards. I have a personal one with my name and my information, and the logo. And
Don't you
then
have it on your t-shirt?
yes, I do as well. And then I have another one that just has the podcast information and not my name. So the only commonality to both of those business cards is the podcast of the show, which is interesting. Uh, but so going back to the book, uh, when was it written?
In 2019. It took me a little while. It was, the good times rolled through. It was just, it gave me an opportunity, to show people that things can go well. And a lot of times they did, especially other business owners. That is really a target audience for that book because made it real. A lot of CEOs or individuals think, well, you own your own company, so you got it made. I mean, that book is more the reality of what it is to have a
I,
business.
I I'm sorry for laughing at that, but do people actually come up and say that or think that? Because I mean, in one sense, okay, I get that. On another sense, whoever thought that running your own business will be all glamorous all the time? Who came up with that mindset of, oh, you're your own boss, you must have it made? Wow, you made it, Renee, or you made it, Robert, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that's just like, and so to dispute that, because it's, well, I marvel at why people think that.
Well, I immediately tell them that they have no idea how many bosses I have. It's I'm responsible for a lot of people, uh that I feel like I view that more as a mentorship, but I still have responsibility to those people. I joke and I talk about the IRS. They're one of the biggest bosses that I've got. The bank, the accountant.
Yeah.
All these people are telling me what to do on a regular basis. So it's far from not having anybody telling me what to do, or the consideration is big. There's a weight that comes along with being a CEO. And I've somebody that that I've dealt with in the past that ended up being a great friend of mine. He talked to me about how when he worked in the warehouse, he got tired. That when he went home, he slept very well because he was physically tired. Then when he was promoted to in the office, he spent a lot of time being like mentally fatigued. And when he would go home, he would think about everything he needed to do. And I said, you're getting that entrepreneurial spirit, built into your mind. And that's what it's like to be an owner. You never stop thinking. You're always working in your mind on what you can do better next and what you can do to help somebody else. And yeah, it's not all roses. And that's what I wanted the book to show. And then I'm also in some CEO groups where they talk real talk too, which makes us feel really good. Social media today, I think, is a deterrent for young people that encourages them to have that mindset that if you're your own boss, you have made it, because they make it look so beautiful.
Oh, wait. You you mean not everything you see or hear on social media is true? Mine alone. Sadly, there are some people who actually think that it's all sound like that, and I was just trying to be a goofball for a second, but there are some people who actually think that.
Especially the younger generation that is coming up. That's what they think. And, it's so bad on so many levels, young girls, young boys that, trying to look like somebody else or be somebody else when their life is probably no better or maybe even worse than theirs is. And if they would just speak the reality of that, I think the world would be a better place.
Yeah, I mean, not all young people are like that, but to your point, there are a lot.
Yeah, there
Uh,
are. Yes. I didn't mean to say that all of them, but
yeah,
I think it's just
no,
the generation that's growing up that they need to understand that it's not. And but a lot of it is, there's a lot of good to be had in social media, like we were
yeah,
talking about the blogs. And it's funny that you were talking about that, about how the podcast was more for people without disabilities. And that put it very well for me, because I'm hoping the people that listen to my podcast, yes, I'm interviewing someone that may be in a wheelchair. I interviewed somebody last week that he was a pilot, crashed his airplane, ended up being paralyzed from the waist down, and laid in the airplane for 8 hours before somebody found him. He went on to be an attorney and a CPA and is living a full life. And I'm
yeah,
hoping that there are people that listen to that podcast that are that are able to do anything, that they may take something for granted that they won't anymore, or they may be complaining they got stuck in traffic that day, and then they hear his podcast, and then they're like, If he can do that, I can do whatever I'm facing. So my podcast is that way too. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I mean, I came to that realization. I'm now smack dab in the middle of season 4, and I became very aware of that recently, that the podcast, the overall messaging, the takeaway is more geared towards the not yet disabled,
Good point.
but also, like, when you have the name I have in the show, I call it a show now because it's uh, audio and video. So it can't, it's not one or the other, it's both. But when you have the name disability empowerment now, you have to have the main focus be empowering the disability and having that be the focus. So you have to walk both paths, uh, cater to both uh, sets of people, at least in my line of work. Uh, Throughout each and every episode, which thankfully I've learned and dreamt about and fantasized about, because I have no life outside of my work. That's me joking half and not really joking the other half. I mean, you put in the hours and if and and you work hard, and if what you create means something, you have to have faith that what you create, what you put out, will stick and will have the impact to empower, inspire, motivate, encourage others. And that's the whole message behind the show. And we're launching a nonprofit next year. Oh, when this episode airs, it will be that year, next year. Uh,
I like the way you
2024 to 2025. But like I tell people, besides getting married and hopefully one day becoming a father, this show and the nonprofit that precedes it will be the two things people read about in my eulogy, in my obituary. That's how impactful I want this line of work to take me and to encourage others throughout their lives. I'm an electronic musician on the side. I
Oh,
do
are you?
that for fun. I do that for myself, my own creativity. I do writing on the side. I'm a poet, I'm a songwriter, I'm a singer, I'm a gamer. But all of that stuff I do for myself. Uh, and I'm not ashamed of any of it, but the work that I do, this work, it's what I want people to remember me by, because this is what I was placed on this planet to do. That's it. I mean, that's not it. Hopefully, only it. But I
That's
mean,
a lot. That's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. But it's like this form of advocacy is incredibly valuable, and it is, at the end of the day, one of the only thing that the only things that matter to me. I'm also a amateur actor on the side, but again, this is my main mode of work, of interviewing people, of encouraging them through my story, and having the listener or the viewer get encouraged by the interviewee, or the guests rather. It's it's hard work, but I'm very much taken with the the quality and the caliber of guests and material that I'm able to put out into the inlet echo chamber of life. And hopefully, I'm able to encourage a dozen or more so people along the way. I'm terrible with numbers. And I mean, I'm I, I'm in reflection mode a lot, because I started that not even 4 years ago, and I've busted my butt, and I work with an incredible group of young professionals, and we always try to not one up ourselves, but constantly uh, improve or offer a new feature or a new gimmick, not gimmick, a new feature, a new method of communication, a new form of enhanced accessibility. Uh, we're never stagnant uh, here. We never repeat and repeat. We always try to climb the staircase or go up the ramp, I'll go up the rope.
Yeah.
Weird analogies, but we're always looking forward uh, to, and we never leave people behind. We try very, very hard not to do that here. We try to be as accessible and as available and as diverse
I was
as
going to
we
say
can.
that I've listened to several of your podcasts, and your guests are very diverse, inclusive, just delightful. I love your podcasts, and you are right. You tend to step it up a notch and change things up, because I went back and I
And
listened
I
to.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Well, it's I've enjoyed listening to them. I'm going to ask you a question if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
What made you go to the video side of it? Just changing things up, or?
So I had uh actually this was season 4 was supposed to be the first season we introduced video as a ramp up, but it was interviewing the disabled actor Kurt Yeager last year.
Oh,
Uh, he's a below the uh, knee amputee, and that episode was so fun and really reset how I do interviews to a more conversational uh, back and forth uh, deal that, and I still geek out over that episode because if I needed a fire to be lit under my butt about why I should continue to do the work I do, it was that episode that really was a paradigm shift. Um, and this is how you make it more engaging, more interesting. You bring in humor, you bring in the banter, you move around. Uh, you Every episode starts as an interview, but it quickly evolves into two colleagues just having to use a political phrase, a fireside chat. Uh,
yes.
I mean, and if 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 this show is successful in doing anything, I hope it's the format that people respond to because it's a very accessible format. It's very lively and it made doing video cats, which I was, before that episode, I was terrified of doing any video work at all. And then right after I recorded that show, that episode, that's all I wanted to do. and that has remained true, but we registered the YouTube handle at the very, very beginning of the podcast, and we only used it 2.5 years into the show.
Oh,
And because my original producer was and still is a very big fan of YouTube, and she was like, you have to register the handle now. Trust me. Even if you're not going to use it for a few years,
yeah.
register it. And I was like, okay, Alex. And I mean, at that time, it was the last thing I was ever, ever going to do. But I registered it, and then 2.5 years later, we ran it. And by the end of, uh, well, when this episode is recording, we're still in 2024, and so by the start of 2025, all of our episodes, podcasts or otherwise, will be on our YouTube. Uh, so, uh, and when this season ends, to say nothing of the post-season content, you'll have over 115 hours of content. And again, we're not even at year 4.
That's a lot of
And
content.
And that may sound like I'm bragging, and I kind of am, but I don't mean to. It goes back to you put in the hours and you shape, shape the content regardless what it is, whether it's writing a book or hosting a show or developing a business plan for your organization. If you care about it, you shape it, and you go through as many drafts or as many edits as you have to, and then you put it out, and then you hope for the best. But you put in the hours and you hope that they get you somewhere.
We've started a YouTube channel, and like you, I didn't realize the importance of it. And it's working out well for us. But I got to go back to something you said, that doing the video portion frightened you. I don't really see a lot of things frightening you.
Well, I should say, uh, that's a good catch. Uh, I should say, when before I did the video cats angle, I did not do any video work before.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that I didn't, I was overhyping that the video mode would be too different and much more complex, and take much more time and effort than the audio podcast mode. Because I didn't know the difference, and it turns out there's not much of a difference. And if you're, the more and more you do it, the more and more comfortable you become, which is what you're seeing now. But like at the beginning of the show, I always mention that I used to only be able to do 1 or 2 shows a week, recording wise, and then after each show, I would have to go take a nap because it would take all of my energy. And I see that with slight facetiousness, but it's like at the beginning of the journey of what I do now, that's where I was, to where I am now, talking to you. I could not envision that I would be here doing, at the time of this recording, this is my 3rd episode of the day back then.
I cannot imagine. I'm at the place where you were back then. It's one episode, maybe 2, and I too am exhausted.
And
And
that's
it's hard
that
work. It's hard
yet
work.
it's very, very hard work. And like I said at the beginning, before we started recording, when you asked me 3 episodes, what are you gonna do afterwards? I said sleep for a gazillion years, because it is exhausting. It's like business leaders pick up this book, and non-business leaders pick up this book, and I'm like, oh, well, you run your own company. It's successful. You must have it made. Oh, it's a podcast or a video cast. You just talk and then you release it. No, that's not, that's an horrible oversimplification of what we do. I mean, it's, but yeah, people think, oh, it's an easy job because you like to talk. And I'm like, I like going on meditation retreats for a few weeks where I don't talk. How can you do that? Easy, because it gives my voice time to recharge. You think that happens naturally? No, it doesn't. But, oh, you make it look so easy. Looks can be deceiving.
It
It's,
certainly can be, but I want to add something here that I think the listeners need to hear as well,
yeah,
is that when you were listing, the things that I do or I have done. And the same thing with you when you're talking about what you do and how many podcasts you do. And it is hard work, but it's also our passion. And I think that
Yes.
these young people and anybody that's, has a business, that if you're not passionate about it, it's very difficult to do. And it's difficult anyway, but if you're passionate about it and you love it, that's why you do it. That's 100% why you do it. And that's why you're pushing through and you've had the energy to do the 3 today. And I'm
Yeah.
with you on the nap deal. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and I mean, I'm heading into a big birthday at the end of October, and I have this goal that no one cares about but myself, which is fine,
What
by
is
the
it?
way. The
What is it?
goal is to get all 40 episodes of the main season recorded by my birthday on
Ooh,
October 30th. And I'm going to make that goal. Will anyone care if I don't? No. Will I care if I don't? No. But you have to realize that the first year of this then podcast, I decided to record 2 seasons in 1 year. The
oh,
first season was 10 episodes because I didn't know if there was gonna be a season 2. And then season 2 was 20 episodes.
that's
No,
fantastic.
no one said, "Oh yeah, you should definitely do that." No one told me not to do it. Uh, but I mean, I was like, cricket. Uh, I'm gonna come out of the gate swinging with this new venture. I mean,
Why not?
because why not? And
Right.
it's like the guest angle was so important because it adds so much more dynamic to the presentation. So what what are some of the key takeaways that have evolved since you've wrote the book, and how have you uh, taken the principles of the book and put them into other mediums like the podcast, like the mentoring program? How have they been fleshed out in daily life?
One of the things that came out of the book that actually was during the book, but so much so toward the end of the book, was a lot of times, or I was hard on myself, mistake here, mistake there, beat yourself up, try to figure it out. I really realized that there were lessons learned in there that I was able to share. And through those lessons learned, I realized that I did have a lot of success. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that that also comes from my faith and through my faith. But how that ended up with the mentoring, I realized when I sold the company that I had for 30 years, I did not realize how much I'm a salesperson by nature, and that was a role that I played the entire time I had the business. But I didn't realize how much I mentored the employees that I called my team. They weren't my employees, they were my team. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that how much I would miss that. So that is what led typically into the Victory in Time. I needed an outlet to sell the book. But when I came up with the Victory in Time name, I'm like, I miss the mentoring and that's what I need to do. So also during that time, I realized during the writing the book that the company that I had for 30 years, I literally sold nuts and bolts, which is a very unique industry to be in for a woman. But what I realized is I looked at my job as helping people and for a profit. I looked at it like I'm helping people and then the money would come. I didn't concentrate on the money. I concentrated on what I was able to do for the customers, for the employees, for the community. It really fulfilled me, which is why then the Victory in Time led to the nonprofit that we've started called the Victory Advantage, because what better way to help people than through how we were able to sell the company and be able to do something like this. I feel very blessed to be a part of the journey that I've had. And I look forward to more days with this. And I'm learning from you on the podcast side and would consider the video, but I'm also, like you said, you were frightened. I'm a little nervous about that as well. But that'll be down the road for me because there's still a lot of time. Like I say, I can't do more than one or two at a time, and you're up to three today.
Oh, well, usually I'm not. Like, the last time I did three, I did them too close together, and I'm like, I'm never doing that again. Never say never. Uh, but Renee, in case there are any aspiring business leaders listening to this episode or watching it, this is a multimedia show, what would be some advice you would give them as they start out in
Find
their
find
career?
what you're passionate about. Find what you love to do. If you have a job, it's going to be hard to get out of bed in the morning. Um, Everyone has to have a passion in order to, and everybody deserves to have a passion to get out of bed in the morning. That's something that, and I experienced it when I sold the company and I was working for the other company for a little while. I realized I didn't want to go to work. I didn't have the passion that I once did because things had changed so much. And I prayed for the people that felt that way, that just got up every day and went through the drudge and, that have a job, which is honorable. Don't get me wrong, that's honorable, but it helps if you are working towards something you're passionate about.
And I like to think that both advocates with disabilities and those who have yet to discover and embrace their own disabilities listen and view this show. But I'm not naive to think that each group and groups within those groups take away the same things from each episode. So, as my guest, what do you hope that advocates with disabilities take away from this episode? And what do you hope that those who have yet to discover or embrace their own disabilities take away from this episode?
That people with disabilities learn to adapt, They don't have it as easy, but that doesn't mean they can't do it. I'm talking to a lady now that has no arms, but she lives alone. And she does everything anybody else can do because she has had the wherewithal to do it. And I'm hoping that the advocates see that from the standpoint of we've kind of touched on it a little bit. We've talked about having a job and all that, that everybody has special talents. It may be different. It may take somebody longer to learn, but if somebody is at home, that was something else that I've learned in my life, and my lessons learned is I've been a person that would work to solve issues. That's one of the things that I love to do. And so that's what a person with disabilities does on a regular basis. So if they can do it in their personal life nonstop, what could they do for an employer? And that just resonates with me in a big way. And that's part of what the Victory Advantage does, is to help people live independently by having a job, by having an employment opportunities where they're passionate about and can get up every day out of bed and have somewhere to go that they love, and where people love them and can enjoy life just like anybody else does.
And Renee, before I let you go, and please come back. I think there's a lot more we could be talking about, because one of the themes throughout this season is employment. Why do you think that employers, not all employers, but a lot of them, are afraid to hire an employee with a disability? The employment statistics for people with disabilities are uh, 3 times that of their non-disabled counterpart. Why do you think, uh, when we both know that people with disabilities are a untapped workforce in this country, and how do you think we can help other employers realize that going forward?
I think fear is a big part of it, that they just don't know. When I was in a wheelchair, people didn't talk to me anymore. They would talk to my husband. They and I'm not saying that people were mean, they just didn't know how to behave. And that's part of what I want to do, is to help teach people how to treat people with disabilities. From an employer standpoint, too, I think they believe that the cost of hiring someone with disabilities would be too high for them, when it is really it's not. It's not. And that's where we need to um, teach people that it's not a barrier. And that, like I said, if people with disabilities can do what they do on a regular basis, teach them that they would be one of the best employees that they've ever had. Plus, they would be the most appreciative people that they've ever worked with. And there's organizations out there that we're partnering with that will literally help find the job for the person and then actually go out and train them. So I think there's a lot of employers that just haven't tapped into it, and they need to be aware of what they're missing out on.
Renee, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to our next episode where we'll talk more about your book in depth, and hopefully all ventures together will continue as God holds us to them. Thank you for making the time to talk with me today.
Keith, thank you so much for having me, and I do look forward to collaborating a great deal with you in the future.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Okay, talk to you later.
Bye.